Welcome back, everybody, to Way Past Due. It has been 42 years, going on 43 years since Otis Taylor became eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It is way past due time for his enshrinement. I want to welcome back to the show my partner and the engine that makes the Otis Taylor for Hall of Fame engine run, Mr. Kerwin Terry. Thanks for
How
coming
you
on
doing,
again,
Jason?
Kerwin. Doing well this
Good
morning. How
morning.
are you, sir?
I'm fine.
Good.
Also like to welcome Mr. Ralph Cooper.
Yes, sir.
And
We have a legend in the midst of us as well, a Hall of Fame radio broadcaster there in Houston for the past 51, 52 years now, right, Mr. Cooper?
yeah, and yes, and it's a pleasure to be on with both of you, Kerwin and Jason, and you can call me Ralph.
O-
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Appreciate all
thanks a
of
lot for
it.
joining us. We certainly appreciate it, and just obviously, after I got to go on your show, which was quite an honor for me, uh, it left me with a lot of questions about what was about the story of Otis back in his early days. Obviously we talked a little bit about that day, but tell me a little bit about what he was like back in his high school days and even before that you can remember.
Well, well, he was like a Will Chamberlain to us. He was a Jim Brown to those of us who came behind him 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
Those of us who may have been in elementary school when he was in high school. Today he was the LeBron James of our era. He was the Russell Wilson. He
Yes,
could
sir.
do everything. He could play football, basketball, baseball. He could swim. He could run. Uh, he didn't like school, but he was persuaded. He was persuaded, and uh, and people around him encouraged him to get into the school thing, and he did.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Well, it's just and it's funny that you say that. When we talked to Ken Houston on our interview with him, he was comparing him as well to Jim Brown, to Muhammad Ali even. He
right,
said that was the kind of athlete to them that Otis was, and that's just wow. That's
right.
and it's not surprising to even hear you say it because we've heard so much about. I
Right.
mean, and just the fact that you can talk about him on your show, and you will get response immediately.
The thing about it is, just kind of think about this for a moment.
Okay.
Worthing, Worthing in 1959, 1960, it started in 58, was a junior and a senior high school, a middle school and a senior high school, which meant it went from the seventh grade to the 12th grade.
Uh
You
huh.
had people there as young as 11, and you may have had several who were 20. And in the midst, you had guys like Otis Taylor, and he had some comrades, Roland Rogers, David Latine, Willie Haverly. We had some outstanding athletes. And you dropped from elementary school, where you were like a king, onto this high school, this junior high and high school campus, now where you're with all of these older kids. And then you get a chance to, you may have heard of Otis Taylor, you may have read about Otis Taylor, heard his name on the radio or whatever back then, and now you're on the same campus with him, and hear the principal call his name on the PA system on the day of the games. Believe it or not, the principal would say something like this, if my memory serves me right. If you, good morning, everyone. If you, to all the teachers and coaches here, if you see Otis Taylor, when you see Otis Taylor, tell him to come to my office. And the principal would keep him in his office all day on the on the on the on the on the day of a game
Was he afraid he
back
was
in.
going to get out of there or something?
Well, he had he was a little undisciplined at times, but very disciplined when it came to football and athletics. That was the thing that encouraged Otis Taylor. And the thing about him, he was very, very intelligent. He
Right.
was no dummy.
No, of course
If
not.
he wanted to, he probably could have been a doctor, an attorney, or whatever. Yeah, how some of us read him.
In reading his book, I think that there's no doubt about that. Just
Yeah,
the way that he comes across to me was that he was, I don't know how
right.
much he liked it back in school, but nobody liked it in junior high, high
Right.
school. I mean, nobody liked school back then. I didn't, but but if you didn't play, if you didn't do well in class, I know from
You don't play.
in my house we didn't play football. I mean,
Right.
in Artesia you
Right.
got to play football, so
Right.
it's kind of how it goes. Um, Folks, we're talking here to Ralph Cooper, the host of the Sports Wrap there in Houston, KCOH 1230 AM, 5 nights a week from Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 p.m. Ralph has been in radio for more than 50 years covering sports there in Houston. And again, we are very honored to have you again here, sir. Tell me just a little bit about that state championship basketball team that he was on with David Latine.
Right. Well, some of us had never back at that time, Texas was segregated for real. The schools didn't. The white schools played the white players. The white players played against each other, and Spanish people played with white people, but blacks played with each other.
Right.
It was the PVIL, Prairie View Interscholastic League. That's where the championship was held. They called it the Baby Dome. The building is still there. Renovated it several times. The great Prairie View teams played there also, and that probably had an influence on Otis. When he went there along with his teammates to play for the state championship, because it was played on the Prairie View campus in the Baby Dome in 1962. And at that time, some of us we had heard of Prairie View, but we didn't know anything about where the state championship was being played.
Sure.
Because we had never been there before. And now all of a sudden your school is going there, and you've got David Latine on that same team who played on the Texas Western team that beat Kentucky in that historical basketball game. And many people saw the movie Glory Road.
Sure.
Well, that's the bald head guy came out of Worthing also. And people like Otis Taylor helped to make him. Imagine they had wars every day in basketball practice. There were several others that are just as big as those guys who didn't make it to the NBA or the NFL for various reasons. But they would have us younger kids would go there and just watch them practice because it was no 3-point shooting.
Sure.
Really no 2-point shooting. It was going to the basket and playing under the hoop, and it was a very physical game, and that's how they practiced. And they ended up winning the state championship, which at that time resulted in more attention of Otis in regards to the other historically black schools, especially the Gramblings, the Texas Southerns, the Southerns. All of them became interested in him also at that time after they won the state championship in basketball.
And he played quarterback. Is that correct? He was the quarterback in football?
Yeah, he was a quarterback in football, but if you went out and watched the practice was like a Hall of Fame practice. I mean, you had so many great football players.
I can imagine.
Imagine Houston, Texas, 1960 with only 5, 6, 7, 8 schools.
Yeah.
And all the blacks were in these schools. So you had the coaches had a great selection to choose from in regards to players. And Otis played quarterback. Again, we go back to something. He was very intelligent.
Right.
He knew the plays. Even back then, some of us didn't even know what audible was. He knew how to do all of that kind of stuff, change plays at the line of scrimmage, to improvise. And then in practice, we saw him doing something many of us had never seen happen before. You've heard of the great receiver Warren Wells, who played with the Oakland Raiders?
Yes, sir.
Well, he played at Texas Southern.
Okay.
He could catch a football with one hand, with no glove. We saw this in the early 60s, and now they do it. You see it. Everybody seemingly is doing it with the glove on. But Otis would catch balls like that in practice, and the coaches at Prairie View probably saw that in him long before he thought about coming there, that how he could catch the ball with one hand.
Sure.
and then just kind of step over people.
So you said there was only 8 schools that they were competing against for state, so that must have been a bunch of guys.
No, not for state. Not for state, for the city.
Oh, for the city. Okay, but even then, that's got to be that's a lot of competition just within your own team to get on the field, right?
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You had 400 or 500 people trying out for a football team.
Oh.
And many of us were told as a young, you don't really want to go out there. You need there are other jobs in football. You can be a trainer, you can be a ball boy, or you can be a historian. And so you were pointed in other directions, but you were around and you saw all this great talent. I mean, the same thing was happening over at Yates High School, Wheatley High School here in Houston, Cashmere, you've heard about them, Booker T. Washington,
yes.
Aldine Carver. Yeah. Also, all these other schools at that time that were black, everything was black.
Yes, sir.
Imagine teachers, coaches, cleanup people, landscaping,
That
everything was
was the
black.
real segregation time at that point, man.
Right.
Man,
Some of us never saw it. Some of us never saw a white teacher or Caucasian teacher or a non-black teacher until we got to college. So all your education was in the hands of black people, and that, in my opinion, played a key role in the creation or the evolution of Otis Taylor, because he was around some great black people, especially black men.
role models, role models.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's
Yeah.
well, I think that's pretty clear. Folks, if you are enjoying this content, we'd like to ask you to continue to click subscribe and enjoy this and pass this on to your friends and because this is so important. It's not about our channel growing. This is about this legend of Otis Taylor continuing to grow and him finally getting into the Hall of Fame. It is an absolute travesty that he has not been inducted into the Hall of Fame yet. Thankfully, they will be getting. Finally, we're getting in uh, another worthing player in Cliff Branch going in finally. Uh, that'll be this year, correct? Yeah,
That's
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Right.
yeah. Are you headed out there for that ceremony?
Probably so. Cliff Branch, passed. His sister,
Yes,
Elaine
of
Anderson,
course.
will be doing his speech. And Cliff would tell you if he was alive. He was influenced by Otis Taylor.
Right,
See, all of us who came behind Otis Taylor, you were touched by the grace of his athletic ability,
correct.
but you were also impressed or influenced by the way he carried himself. I
Mhm.
mean, although he wasn't maybe not the most disciplined player, but he was not the most undisciplined individual on the campus. I mean, and he turned Worthing into a situation, Sunnyside into a situation where it was a very positive thing for him, which played a key role in his success not only at Prairie View but after Prairie View at Kansas City. So he was already those coaches, John Tankersley, uh, Coach Gatlin back in the day. Those individuals, Benny Roy was his basketball coach. He was a Texas Southern product. He had played for a great coach, Ed Adams. He was touched by people who had already been before him touched by great people,
Right.
and they passed that on to him and others that came after him.